Super Awesome Overlord W.
Cuddly Basket.
And Mystic.
The gang's all here this time.
And we're here to talk about the games that we played for last year's challenge. That we challenged each person to play a game that we thought they would enjoy, or at least torture them with.
The 2018 Game Challenge. So every year, we try to give each other some games to just play and beat. They just have to beat the game before the year ends. And none of us ever do it except for Mystic.
we were mostly successful, aside from Cuddly.
We've only tried it once. Yeah. This is our second year going for it, so fingers crossed.
Yeah. So, Cuddly, what was your games this last year?
I had a few of them. I'm going to talk about the one that I played, which is the Stanley Parable. I went into it thinking it was a completely different game, so I was happily surprised when I ended up finishing it.
And who gave you Stanley Parable?
That was Mystic.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I never found out why Mystic had me play it. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, it's just it's a fun game. It's pretty short. I feel like it's pretty good at being able to keep your attention because the story isn't too drawn out, but it's also pretty interactive. And I think it's a great experience. I think everyone should play Stanley Parable.
It's very funny. Yeah.
I'm not even getting paid to say that.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty funny.
Mr. Stanley.
I love it. All right, and what did Tree give you?
Tree gave me a little game, you might have heard of it, called The Wind Waker. I played about an hour of it, and most of that was spent on the little island where there's a pig who, if you hold up directly over your head, will continuously fart until the end of time. I'm still there on that island. That's as far as I've gotten.
All right, and what game did I give you?
I don't know, what game did you give me?
I gave you...
Life is Strange, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
I gave you Life is Strange.
Oh. Yeah, played the 4th episode of that yesterday.
Yeah,
so.
you just started playing that yesterday.
He got the first 3 episodes, right, last year?
Yeah.
And, hi, Tree.
Hey!
And what games did you get last year?
So last year, I got Life is Strange from you, which I completed, and it's changed my life. There's it's a lot of awesome things about it. The character, the plot, the mechanics, they're really unique and different, and the way that they set up the twists or set up the depth of the characters in the story, and the way that you really feel you have branching past, more so than any other, a lot of RPGs at least, I can say.
I'm really lame for giving 2 of you Life is Strange.
No, it's part of the ritual now. Mystic will be soon.
Everyone has to do
Everyone will have to play the game.
Yeah, we'll get Mystic to play Life is Strange, and then all of us will have completed the Life is Strange cycle. Alright, and then what did I give you? Or what did Mystic give you?
Mystic gave me Bravely Default. I got into chapter 2, I think I'm at right now.
Nice.
But thankfully I did a substitution, so I kind of completed my challenge.
Kind of a cop-out, if you ask me.
Well, Final Fantasy VI isn't a short game. It's not Stanley Parable. It's a pretty long game. It's definitely considered a retro game. It's definitely
I would say Final Fantasy VI was an improvement over Bravely Default. Personally.
Taking a stand.
I am, but I felt that way for a long time.
Oh, okay.
But I really enjoyed FF6. The characters are really interesting. I really enjoyed the plot and the storyline. Even the mechanics were really interesting. Like the way each character had a unique game mechanic in the system. I thought it was really creative and really different from some of the other Final Fantasies that I had a chance on playing. So what did you think of the substitution, Mystic? Are you glad about it, or do you think one game is better than the other, or do you think they're both like unique experiences that she can have?
I would say that as an overall package, I actually think that Bravely Default is a better game. And I'll tell you why. Because Final Fantasy VI is pretty phenomenal. And Bravely Default, I think, takes a lot of inspiration from the good elements of previous Final Fantasy games and then adds to it. So it's got a charming storyline. It has 1.5 likable characters that are playable. But then it has a really interesting job class system. It has customization to how you create your team and how you can manipulate them, kind of like FF5 or FF Tactics. It has a pseudo multiplayer kind of system, and you don't really connect with other people and play simultaneously like FF6 and FF9 do, but it allows you to have other people's worlds and characters exist in your game in a fashion that's considered canon. But it's a really good game. I really like it a lot, and I think if FF6 were to be totally remastered the way that it was when it was first out, I don't think the game would be as good mechanically as Bravely Default is. Now, I would say that FF6, because of the limitations that it has more charm and it has more nostalgia power, and I think a lot of that has to do with how they dealt with the limitations and how they broke the mold at the time. But just mechanically, I think Bravely Default is a better game.
Bravely Default kind of feels like you're playing Final Fantasy IX, like in the combat and stuff.
I think the one thing that Bravely Default dies on, which when you get there, you'll see that for yourself, is that when you get to the end of the game, it drags on for way longer than it really should, and that's something that I haven't heard anybody say is not the case. It's pretty much universally agreed from all the people that I've spoken to. But they're both really good games, but they both offer things that are different because of the span between the two games' release. So I would say it's not really a fair comparison, but just mechanically, Bravely Default, I think, is a better game.
Another hot take from Mystic. Yeah. It's always hard, to compare things that have released so far between each other, because especially one has the opportunity to take inspiration from the other.
Right, and one is made for audiences today, and one is definitely made for the audiences of its time.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to ask which game I love more, it'd be FF6.
So, Cuddly Basket gave me Dream Daddy. It actually was originally... What was the game? Oh, Nier Automata.
Yeah. I made a last-minute switch.
Yeah, but after realizing the game was much more heavily focused on shooting mechanics.
Well, not necessarily. But a lot of combat. It's very combat-heavy.
Yeah, so I realized it maybe wasn't my kind of game. So
they're very similar games.
We made the switch to Dream Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you would like Nier Automata if you watched someone play it rather than actually playing it yourself?
I did watch Mystic played it for a little bit, but
like if next year, for example, I give you Nier Automata, but the challenge is you have to watch me play it.
I don't think that would be as fun because I think the focus is on playing and experiencing the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely watched Mystic play Resident Evil 7, and I thought that was a good time, but having that be a challenge, I don't think would be...
Not really in the spirit of our little thing.
Yeah. But I played Dream Daddy, and it was actually really well designed and really funny because Cuddly Basket watched with me, and that's typically, I think, not a kind of game he would play.
No, probably not. I definitely watched someone else play it, which it did.
Yeah, but the dialogue choice is really funny.
Yeah.
The implementation of texting and the emotes, the messaging was really fun. And then they also actually had a relationship with your daughter character,
right,
rather than any other typical dating simulator. So I think they did something really fun with it. Some of it was kind of stereotypical, but I think that's part of the dating simulator tropes that they were playing off of.
Right.
And they're just trying to make it fun. And I think they did a great job. I had a lot of fun. Although that game is a lot harder than you would think.
Oh yeah, to get a good ending for sure.
Yeah, so I ended up choosing Craig. He was very handsome,
dreamy,
and nice, dreamy, almost a dream daddy, one could say.
Almost.
But he just seemed like a really nice guy, and I thought he fit well with the character I was playing. And I didn't end up getting him at the end. I didn't get my dream daddy.
Yeah, we were rejected.
Oh no.
Yeah, spoilers.
I only watched you play that for one session, and the part that I saw, which was just the beginning up until you started meeting the daddies, that game looked really cute. It looked a lot of fun and charming.
I really like the art, actually. It looked really nice.
It's very nice, yeah.
So I think that game was definitely a fun game, and one day I might try again and see if I can be successful.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what were your games?
So, Tree, you gave me Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life for the GameCube.
Correct.
I had played a lot of Harvest Moon games prior to that, but that was the first time I played a 3D one, and it was a lot different than the 2D ones. It seemed a little bit more restrictive as far as like your farm goes, but it actually made up for it in like actually getting like storyline for the girls that you were trying to go for.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked it. I didn't like pushing my cow inside and out of the barn every night.
That's one of my favorite things.
For Cuddly, he gave me Papers, Please.
Mm-hmm.
I had watched people play that game just a little bit. It didn't seem like a fun game at all. Like, it seemed like a silly, like, the game. Like, it seemed like a job simulator type of game. Where
Postal Office, the game.
Exactly. And actually sitting down and playing it was amazing. Like, I never knew that this kind of work could have, like morality choices and stuff. And you had to choose between saving your family or doing what you think is, like, the right thing. Like, getting these people who are kind of oppressed a little bit and getting them safely into the country, but at the same time you get penalized money every time you do something wrong, and you have to keep your family fed and keep them healthy and keep the heat on. And Mystic gave me Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced. Back when Mystic and I lived closer together, we played Final Fantasy Tactics a lot, and I had never actually gotten around to playing, in a serious sense, Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced, and he wanted me to experience that because it was especially for a handheld, it was amazing. I didn't beat it. I think I got into the 3/4 marker, where
Yeah, I think so.
I was basically on the tail end of beating it, but yeah, I didn't complete it, but I still have the save file, and I intend to go back to it when I have time. Yeah, those were my 3 games. Mystic, it's your turn.
I had Majora's Mask from the Overlord, and I had Sleeping Dogs from CB, but I can't remember what Shree gave me.
I gave you Octopath Traveler.
Oh, Octopath Traveler, that's
Speaking
right.
of Bravely Default.
Yeah.
So, Octopath Traveler, I actually compare more to a series called Saga Frontier or Romancing Saga. It feels a lot like one of those kinds of games, and there were a lot of parallels that I felt existed between that game and Romancing Saga, the remake for PlayStation 1. I enjoyed it a lot. Very fun game. Majora's Mask is actually one of the few Zelda games I hadn't played. I never was able to obtain a copy, and then a year ago I got a copy for the 3DS, but I was so backlogged on games I just never got to it. So finally played it, and I enjoyed it, and I can definitely see why other people consider that game to be the best or their favorite Zelda game. And Sleeping Dogs was interesting. In some cases it was really frustrating because the missions were difficult, but without the added benefit of having Grand Theft Auto gun availability.
Mm-hmm.
So that game was pretty enjoyable too, but it was definitely, in my opinion, a little bit harder than Grand Theft Auto because you really had to rely on your ability to do the Batman button pushing sequences to murder all of the criminals that you were fighting against.
It's more of a beat 'em up than it is like a shooter.
Yeah, I spent most of my time, I think, tackling innocent civilians.
That's the only thing you should do in that game.
Even among other Zelda games, Majora's Mask is still my favorite. You know, the first one I played was Link to the Past, and I really love Breath of the Wild, but I still go back to Majora's Mask. It's still my favorite in the series, and it's so different. Like, compared to other Zelda games, it's so vastly different.
Kind of like Link's Adventure for the NES.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good comparison. Solid point. Yeah.
So how is Majora's Mask different than other Zelda games?
Well, of course you have the Groundhog Day time rewind system. You go back in time and you have to stop this cataclysmic event that's about to befall the people of Termina. They are about to be killed off, and it is your job to save them. But you can't do it all at once. You have to keep rewinding time and trying to save the day that way, because you only have 3 days to get it done, and it just takes too long.
And none of the Zeldas let you put Princess Deku in a bottle.
Yes. Best part of the game already.
My favorite part of the game.
Yeah.
Zelda's crazy, man.
Have you ever...
Crazy
what
series.
What games in Zelda have you played?
I've only played...
Farting Pig and Wind Waker.
yeah, Farting Pig and Wind Waker.
You haven't played Breath of the Wild?
I played Breath of the Wild,
Wild.
and I played a bit of Spirit Tracks.
Spirit Tracks?
Okay.
Yeah.
I've actually haven't played Spirit Tracks.
So it's a good time.
Is that the one where Zelda turns into, like, an iron knuckle
Yes.
ghost?
Yep.
Okay.
Zelda's really interesting as a series.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's bonkers.
One thing about Zelda games is they always have CPUs that are just so bizarre, and that's kind of like a mainstay for the series. Like they just take the CPUs and they just give them really odd quirks, and then that's the guy who just sells bottles at the market. And you're just like,
I think it's really neat. It makes it a lot more unique than any like regular RPGs where they're just generic art and NPC instead of NPC with quirk.
yeah. All right, so Cuddly, how would you talk about your games, buddy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the one I can only really talk the most to is Stanley Parable, being the one I finished. It's a first-person adventure game. It's
kind of a walking simulator, right?
Sure, yeah. It's like a surrealist, kind of has like a Groundhog Day effect to it too, where you're just repeating a lot of it over and over again, but you're getting different paths along the way. There's like a surrealist humor to it. It's a bit nihilistic. It's a very good time. I like it. The humor still holds up also. I don't remember when it came out. Was it like 12 years ago? I can't remember.
I think a lot sooner than that, but
Was
yeah.
it? Okay.
Well, the original version came out, and it wasn't a standalone product. It was a mod of, I think, Half-Life or something.
Sure.
So that game has been out.
And it's about to get a new update too, which is exciting.
The extra DLC and everything.
Yeah.
It looked really fun when I saw that at the.
I know Mystic especially was excited to see that.
I was, yes.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I played it. It's been one of those games that I've heard so much about and wanted to try for so long, but also thought it was a different game. So there's that.
So what were you expecting out of it?
I don't remember. I can't remember the game I was confusing it with, but I thought it was going to be more action heavy, more survival-y. But yeah, I'm glad with what I got.
So that was really the only game out of the 3 that
Yeah, I
you
did the
played.
Farting Pigs. Did 4 episodes of Life is Strange, and Stanley Parable.
How about you, Tree?
About the games I did, I
Yeah.
played. I'm really glad that you recommended Life is Strange. I now am recommending it to friends and trying to have them have that experience.
I was so happy when you liked Life is Strange. I felt like I did my job. And
Yeah, and I think initially, I don't know what I was confusing it with, but I thought it was more of like, not horror, but like a thriller or something.
Sure,
and
yeah.
I was like, I don't know about this. But after playing it, I realized I really liked it. It was different than what I was first intending, and it's not to say there aren't maybe a few scary parts,
Yeah,
but overall,
I was gonna say it can be a thriller at times.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
But I think overall, with the humor of it, and then the mystery and the thriller aspect of it, it was really enjoyable.
There's a lot of downtime that I like that just allows you to explore a lot.
Yeah, and I really took advantage of that. I actually on my first playthrough managed to get all the photographs because I was
Wow.
like, I need to have these.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a completionist kind of person, and it's gonna make it very hard in playing some of the other games I've been challenged to this year. Life is Strange is definitely short enough to let me do that.
Do we want to talk about some of those? We should start with Mystic first if we're going to.
Sure, yeah, go.
So I know I gave Mystic. I gave you
You
Resident
gave me
Evil
Resident Evil
7
and Vanquish.
Vanquish, yeah, from Platinum.
And then I got from W
West of Loathing.
West of Loathing, which was an amazing experience. And then I have Dark Cloud from Tree.
The moment I saw West of Loathing, I knew I had to. First off, I had to play it. But second off, I had to. That was the game I immediately knew I was going to give you, Mystic. I was like, this game is so amazing and hilarious.
But why though?
Because at that time, Tree was telling us that we needed to start getting ready for the games that we were going to give next year. Because we were going to do it really early. Because we kind of did our 2018 games kind of late in the year, like in around August or so.
Yeah.
And we decided we were going to do it like early January for...
The beginning of the year.
Yeah, very beginning of the year for the games this year. And it was around that time that I saw West of Loathing, and I saw just like the trailer and like a little bit of gameplay from a Let's Play, and I stopped watching immediately because I'm like, I have to play this game. I love it so much. And and then I chose that. The very second thing I did was decide that was the game you were going to play, Mystic. Because I felt like that would be a game you'd really appreciate.
But what made you come to that decision?
I was looking for a game that was within your kind of humor, but also a game that was not like crazy long, but actually had substance to it, so it wasn't like crazy short either.
Okay.
And as I was looking for that, like West of Loathing was just kind of there, and I was like, this is perfect. This is all the things that I want, and it's hilarious, and I think everyone that watched you play it would enjoy it just as much as you did. And I never beat it. I didn't even get to the second railroad, but you beat it, and I watched you beat it, and it was amazing.
It was definitely amazing playing that game. I really enjoyed it. And one thing I do like about it is that the way it's set up, it's difficult to get a fully completed playthrough on your first attempt. But you can choose to either start a new game and make some different choices, particularly with who you choose to bring with you to the West, or you can just pick up where you left off after seeing the ending, so you can realize what it is that you've missed and what you need to go finish. It doesn't make you pick one of the two. It allows you to pick whichever one you like. So I thought that was a really good way to handle that.
Yeah. We also gave each other challenges this year as part of our games. And I gave you a really mild challenge. The only challenge I gave you for West of Loathing was you had to play the whole game with Stupid Walk On enabled. And I feel like that was the definitive way to play the game.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you already have West of Loathing like on your radar before?
Yeah, I already expressed an interest in playing
Okay.
it, but he made me do it for the challenge, and I just figured, okay, well, it was meant to be.
Okay, what were some of your other games, Mystic?
So I had Resident Evil 7, which I've beaten, Vanquish, which I haven't played yet, Dark Cloud, which I'm halfway through, and then West of Loathing, which I've beaten.
Okay, and my games were Life is Strange Before the Storm, which Tree and I went quite at length talking about already.
Yeah, we had that. My challenge was that we would both play it together.
At the same time.
I'm glad it turned out.
That was super fun, because the way we deviated in our decisions made talking about that game afterwards really exciting.
Yeah, I think it was really awesome.
That actually enhanced the way my experience with the game.
Yeah,
personally.
I think it did for me as well. That's why it was something I wanted to do, since you had played the first one, before I even considered playing it. So.
Yeah. The second game was Metroid Prime. That was from Cuddly. And then you gave me another game, a computer game about pirates. I've looked into this game. I don't know its name.
Return of the Obra Dinn.
Yeah.
Yes, and I haven't started playing it yet, but I mean it's still pretty early in the year, so I plan on getting into that. And then Mystic's game, which, oh my gosh.
Can you tell us the title, Mr.
I forgot. What did I make you play?
You made me
Chef
play.
Boyardee?
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah. Tales of Games Studios presents Chef Boyardee's Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, Chapter 1 of the Hoops Barkley Saga.
Rolls off the tongue.
Oh my gosh. So, first off, I make an appearance in this game. In the form of a character named Pump. And I couldn't help but feel personally attacked. Yes.
That's very funny.
This game was nothing what I could have prepared for. You said it was a silly, hilarious basketball RPG, and I'm like, okay, that's weird, a post-apocalyptic basketball game.
I'm pretty sure none of those words came out of my mouth when I described that game.
I guess I did research and looked it up a little bit, but nothing prepared me for what this game truly was.
A beautiful disaster.
It was a beautiful disaster, and I can't recommend this game more to literally everyone. Even if you don't like basketball, even if you hate basketball, there's still a lot to love about this game. Yeah, those were all of my games. How about you, Treat?
So my games for this year, like I said before, I switched to FF6, but this year I am going to try to complete Bravely Default. One thing about this year that's interesting is that the game time I was assigned, I think, is more than...
We should talk about the estimated times for each.
Oh, yeah. So how we talked about...
Let's start with Mystic.
Okay, so Mystic's time... this is according to...
A website.
A website called How Long to Beat.
Okay.
A video game. And Mystic's is 46 and a half hours.
Ooh, yeah.
So pretty lengthy.
Some time.
W's.
W's. Yeah.
I probably got the least amount of hours.
Yeah, you have the least amount. You have 35 and a half.
35 and a half.
And Cuddly Basket has 57.5.
Oh.
I think the majority of that is Wind Waker.
Yeah. Because from the holdover from last year.
Yeah.
But otherwise, what would my time for this year have been?
I think it's like 13.
Okay.
Yeah, not super long.
And Tree,
Jeez.
how many hours did you get?
Just this year, I have 165 hours.
That's not too bad.
Goodness
gracious.
And you're the completionist of our little group here, so...
I don't think she's going to complete either of those things.
I keep going to my completionist ways, and I have to track myself back on the mainstream track.
So why do you have so many hours?
Well, Bravely Default is a really long game with 56 hours about. So I have some of that done already, but not too much. So the next one was W assigned me Paper Mario Thousand Year Door.
Yeah, I had originally assigned you Final Fantasy VI, but I had forgotten that you had switched your game from Bravely Default to Final Fantasy VI. And so I quickly did a impromptu Paper Mario Thousand Year Door switch.
Which I am grateful for. So I have completed that game. I think it said originally it was supposed to be 31 hours. I think it took me about 39. But it was a really fun game. I loved it, and it's ruined every other Mario game for me now.
So which game did you like more, FF6 or Paper Mario Thousand Year Door?
Oh, why do you have to ask me questions
that?
They're
so different.
They're so different.
I guess which one is the better game, but which one did you enjoy the experience more?
Oh, I think Paper Mario, just because I lean towards like a more entertaining, fun game, wholesome game. So FF6, definitely has dark themes in it, and I really like the game, but just because how wholesome Paper Mario was, and how out of canon it seemed for the Mario series.
It is so different from
like
other
it
Mario.
definitely didn't get dark and gritty, but it definitely got.
It takes a lot of creative liberties.
Right, a lot of creative liberties in it, and it made the characters less G rating and more like a PG-13 rating, and I thought that was really cool.
I agree.
But the majority of my hours come from Cuddly Basket. So Cuddly Basket, for this year, we decided based on betting on E3 predictions.
Yeah, was it E3 or was it for the Game Awards for 2018?
It was E3.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Was it the Game Awards?
I think it was the Game Awards.
Well, you won both, so it
Yeah,
could've
you
been
won
either.
both.
Sure, that's right. Yeah.
So we did E3 predictions, and we did what's it called?
The Game Awards.
The Game
predictions.
Awards.
The 2018 Game Awards.
And Cuddly Bastic won both of those. So he was allowed to pick 2 games for this year. And he assigned me FF15, which just the main game is 28 hours. So it's pretty big.
Yeah.
And The Witcher 3, which is 50 hours. And I usually take a little longer than the averages, I think.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a heavy, heavy load this year.
I think I finished FF15 before 28 hours. I think I was maybe 23. And I took my time.
So, we'll see. We'll see how it comes out at the end. But I felt like a little unfair with the time slotting.
Yeah. You like RPGs, so I give you RPGs.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Any small, without going into an in-depth discussion, is there anything you want to just talk about the games that you got last year?
Last year? Yeah, so I mentioned about Life is Strange. I really enjoyed it. FF6, I think I also mentioned the game mechanics and the storyline. I really enjoyed it. Each of the characters are really likable. And that's something I agree with in FF9 and FF10. That, I won't call names. Yeah, I won't insult the other Final Fantasy games, but there are a few other ones that I think just are up to par to compare to these games. And I was a little skeptical of FF6, but after playing it, I definitely put it in the same category as my other favorites.
Where did that skepticism come from?
I'm not sure. I didn't have a lot of experience with those older games. Yeah. But I don't know. I guess I made unfair assumptions about
just seeing it and comparing it to 9.
What were you skeptical of?
I think just because FF9 and FF10 were newer games and they were 3D.
Having to go back.
Right, and these were 2D games, so I thought it would follow a lot of the tropes of Breath of Fire and the older SNES RPG games, where they just kept you on they keep you on a track, but I think they did creative differences that I didn't expect, and that's why I really enjoyed it because of that difference and that surprise. Sure.
I gotta tell you, Tree, the fact that I met someone that hadn't played Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy VI, it was so amazing to see someone experience those games for the first time again, because I haven't seen that in years. And I loved my first experience with these games, and it was so awesome to see you play Final Fantasy IX for the first time. And I didn't really get to see you play Final Fantasy VI, but I've heard that you loved it, and yeah, so it's so cool getting to see someone who is unfamiliar with these games, but and has a knowledge of games that are kind of current, but you went back and played these games, and it's and you're genuinely enjoying it, and that's something that
a sincere take from a fresh pair of eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people have a hard time going back to the retro games, having been used to the new game graphics, the new game mechanics.
Sure.
But and not even just nostalgia. But like you said, I just genuinely enjoy those games because they're fun. They're made to be fun. They're made to be creative, and then especially experiencing them with friends while you're playing, makes it all that much better.
So my prediction, and I still don't know your answer on this. My prediction was that Celeste would have been your favorite character. Was I correct?
So when I first met Celeste, I think you mean?
Yeah.
I thought she was really cool, and I do really enjoy her as a character. Actually, I think in the first half, I was sticking with Edgar, and partially with Cells, but there were certain parts with Cells that I felt like kind of disappointed in her character. But as I moved on to the second half of the game, I regained my respect and adoration for her. So I think in the end though, I would say that Edgar was my favorite character.
Edgar? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back when I played, I think Mog was always my favorite character, but that's just because he was super cute and I loved Muggles. And that's about as far as my how my depth of loving a character went.
Yeah, I just really liked Edgar because, he gave up so much for like his brother, his country. He was doing so much. And although it might be a bit unfair because Cells really does go through a character development, Edgar really sticks to his identity throughout. He knows what he's about. He knows what he needs to do. And even though he goes through trials and tribulations, he sticks to who he is. And he does right by everyone. And although it claims for him to be some sort of ladies' man, he never really shows that in the game. And so...
Not much. It kind of like... He kind of insinuates it at first, but then like when he goes on his journey, he kind of drops it.
The game just forgets about it.
Yeah, it's almost like duty comes first, I guess.
Yeah, so I don't know what the purpose of introducing that and then not really continuing off of it was, but it made me like him all that much more because he wasn't that typical character that Sister kind of played off of at times. So I really liked him. I thought he was super cool. And he gets a chainsaw and he wrecks enemies. And it's the best move he has, so it's so enjoyable.
Do I need to play this game?
You never...
You need to play
You should play that game. If you were going to play any Final Fantasy, that would be in my top 3 to recommend.
Sure.
He has a chainsaw.
Yeah, I know.
You never
that's all you need to say.
You never expect a old-timey prince of a desert kingdom to just come at bad guys with a chainsaw.
And a Jason mask.
Is it really in the Jason
mask?
Oh my god.
He dons on a Jason mask. If he can't auto-kill someone with the chainsaw, he just spins in circles and waylays damage on them.
Oh, well.
Yeah, you need to play the game.
Maybe next year.
Alright, so, yeah, and I think Dream Daddy was a good game. I definitely wouldn't say it'd be, like, anywhere in my top 10 or 20, but It was a fun game, and it was an enjoyable game, and I'm glad I played it.
I didn't get to see much of it when you played it, but it did make me interested in trying it myself. The only... I didn't get to know the characters much, but I really liked the dad figure, and I really liked his dynamic with his daughter. The daughter seemed kind of not so much of as important of a character as the dad himself, but the relationship between the two was really interesting, and I liked how he always put that first when talking to these other fathers. As far as the parts I saw.
Yeah, he definitely wants to find, a partner that's gonna help him with his daughter and be part of that family. And that's why it's way more interesting than a typical dating sim where it's just about getting the girl, or in this case, getting the dream daddy. But they definitely took it to even more depth place and more practical, and that's what I really enjoyed about it.
I think the relationship between you and your daughter is really what fleshes out the character of your dad.
Yeah. The main character.
So you two were the ones who kind of watched Tree play this game. What was some of the cool stuff about it after the parts that I saw?
I don't remember what you saw.
I saw
You saw the very beginning
right
with you.
Okay.
I think it was mostly you, Cuddy, last that watched me play the game.
I only saw the very end, so the only thing I know about it is the barbecue at the end and also eggplant emojis.
Right.
which is frankly one of the funniest parts.
It's very funny, yeah. It's a highlight. Some standout things. There were some really good mini games. There's a nice little shout out to Pokemon in there.
That's right.
There's a lot. There's also one that reminds me of a Wii Sports Resort marathon game. It's very nutty, but I liked it a lot. I enjoyed watching Tree play it.
Well, awesome. Were there any games that stood out for you, Cuddly Basket?
That I played this year?
Last year or this year?
Yeah, the new games. That you
Oh,
guys
Shadow of the Colossus.
added
You've
onto
played
my
a
list.
couple of the Colossi at this point.
Yeah, I think I did 3 Colossi. And I haven't played the original, but from what I've seen, it looks like, and mechanically, it feels like it is faithful to a PlayStation 2 generation game. The scale is still very much there of the Colossi. There's still just these huge, gargantuan things that make you feel so small, and like you're riding a roller coaster for the first time when you're climbing them. You just have that pit in your stomach every time you almost fall to your death. It's really cool. It has a really good, interesting theme and feel to it. The vibe when you're walking around these desolate lands. It's not like most things that I've played before.
Yeah, and seeing the remake on the PS4, which is part of the reason I wanted you to play the game, it was really interesting because I played on the PS2 originally, and I had Mystic, not part of a challenge, but played the game on the PS3, and they didn't really make too much of a difference graphically. But
Sure, the first remaster, yeah.
But seeing the PS4 remaster, it is beautiful. I love what they've done with the remastering of the graphics.
Mhm.
I was so surprised when I saw the graphics in the remake.
Mm-hmm.
They're really well done.
Yeah.
And then seeing you enjoy the game as it is,
Mm-hmm.
it's really awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, Blue Point Games really doing some good stuff. Like having you be underwhelmed by the first remaster and then having them completely blow you away with the remake that they did, I think is really a testament to the work that they are capable of doing. You know.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome that they've met my standards.
Right. Yeah.
My expectations.
They're like, oh, is this not good enough for you? Here you go. Yeah, that's great.
All right, anything your games, W?
So with Harvest Moon, I went with The Farmer's Daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, I had tried to go with 2 girls that apparently weren't available to me. Like, my first choice was the archaeologist's wife, I think.
I don't think she's the wife. I think she's the assistant.
I'm not sure, but she seemed young, like in the same age
Right.
range as the other girls that you can date. But then I found out that she wasn't among the girls that was available to get married to.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, she's really pretty. I really like her hair and like her glasses and just her look. She kind of has like a Tomb Raider look going on, like a more modest Tomb Raider.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh darn, okay, I can't really date the Tomb Raider. I guess I'll go date this girl up in this mansion, this rich girl, and it turns out she's only available to date in the PlayStation 2 remake.
Yeah, the special edition for the PS2.
No.
So
Which I wasn't even aware of because I played it also on the GameCube.
Mm-hmm. So my first 2 choices as a love interest tragically ended up in tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the girls that I
Your
was
first choice.
Yeah, my first choice in ladies. But I after interacting with the other 3 girls that were available to court romance, yes. Yeah, I noticed that in a lot of Harvest Moon games there's like the difficult girl to romance, to fall in love with. And it was very obvious which one that was. It was the girl that was in the mansion. I forgot her name, but Nami, that's right.
Yeah, she was my waifu in
I can tell
my
you-
Harvest Moon days.
I can tell you cared a lot about her.
Yeah, I think she was fine. It's just I didn't get a big connection with her. She's kind of standoffish until I assume you start to build that relationship with her. But yeah, I really started getting comfortable with the farmer's daughter. She's
nice.
Yeah, she's cute. She's nice. She kind of has like some sad stories with her parents. Like her brother and her parents are kind of like forcing her to get married and all this other stuff. And it really started to build my interest in her as compared to the other 2 girls. Like I kind of kind of explored the flower shop girl a little bit.
The bar girl.
Yeah, the girl with the pink hair. But
Pink hair? I thought she was blonde. The third, which one?
is she blonde? Okay.
There's 3 girls.
You're right.
Not me, the redhead. Sorry.
This game
No,
is
it's
called
fine.
Harvest Moon.
And then the farmer's daughter, and then there's the bartender's daughter. I think he's the bar. He owns the bar, I think.
Yeah.
And she has like blonde curly hair.
That's right. And she seems to be like the most outgoing and the most
Right, she's
friendly.
definitely the most social and.
Right. And then the farmer's daughter who's really shy but polite and I just kind of like started to fall in love with her when I found out that she was getting married and she didn't want to, and I just kind of felt sorry for her, and not really feel sorry for her, but I kind of felt for her, and I like her plight. And when she finally accepted my feather, I was like, yes.
Is that a euphemism?
It's like a ring,
I'm just
right?
kidding.
It's the feather.
Yeah. You get this rare blue feather, and that's how people in Harvest Moonland tell someone that they want to get married.
Oh.
Is that how it is in other Harvest Moon games? I don't remember.
I've only played A Wonderful Life, so I'm not sure actually.
Sounds like a much cheaper alternative to real life.
This was probably the second Harvest Moon that I ever actually got married in. All the other ones I kind of focused on my farm and crops and my animals, and then I eventually just gave up.
In this game, they actually give you the option of like raising your child a little bit and having a family. Although it can come from funny moments, and usually I think, at least when I played, once I got married, because I was relatively young, I wasn't thinking about, oh, I want a family. I was like, okay, I'm done. I got the girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we'll live happily ever after the end.
Forever.
And that was the ending limit that you gave me. You said as long as I get married to her, then I can call that completing the game.
Harvest Moon is a long game when you consider how many days and time you are meant to spend in it.
Yeah, and it made me want to explore how getting the child and getting to see the child and raising it would be like, but I also heard that once you actually get married to your wife, that she kind of stops having a personality and stops being a character.
Yeah, they whoever your spouse is, whether you play the original or the girls edition actually later, is that your spouse just kind of stays in the farmhouse and doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and that sounded like a bummer, so I'm actually kind of glad I stopped when I did, but I am still interested to go back and at least see if I can start a child or raise a child and see what it's like.
Yeah.
But as far as what I did play, I really enjoyed it, and
Right.
I felt like that was probably the second best game I played that year as far as. The other games I played were Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced, and that game, I enjoyed that one because when we first started, Mystic Tree and I all started doing the voices, and that was the first game it wasn't the very first game we did voices for, but it was one of the first, and it was a lot of fun. We each designated characters, and of course, the girl said you can't be called New Kid forever, so of course I showed her and named my main character New Kid. And now to this day I don't even remember that guy's name because now his name is New Kid.
Right, it's forever New Kid in your mind.
Exactly. Whatever his name was, it's not anymore. Game is interesting because in a certain perspective, you play the villain in this one.
Okay.
Your goal is to get back to your hometown. You get teleported to another world through a book, and your goal is to get back to your home. But in order to do that, you basically have to end the world by destroying these crystals that keep the world held together. I destroyed 3 of them before I finished playing, and that's why I assume I was on the slope to completing the game.
Sure.
I think there was either 4 or 5. Was there 4 or 5 Mystic?
I believe there's 4.
One for every race but humans?
Yes.
Okay. And, after you destroy these crystals, every single member of the race that was associated with that crystal gets this amazing finisher attack, which made the game a lot easier. Plus, Mystic had built his own character on my game, this Moogle, who was what I had some random name. You don't get to name your characters in this game, but we gave him the honorary nickname of Destroyer of Worlds because he entered combat and he instantly killed 2 enemies, and then it was our turn. So, battle starts, Moogle destroys 2 enemies.
Dead.
Now it's our turn to choose what our characters are going to do. And then it was the enemy's turn.
Yeah.
So
Swinging out the gates.
Exactly. And Tree and I made some characters, but they were far inferior to this Destroyer of Worlds Moogle that Mystic had provided me with.
Yeah.
And I had a ton of fun. The only thing that was basically keeping me from the end of the game is just dedicating myself to playing it, but I got busy and I just kind of put it down and I never really picked it back up. But it's still on my desktop and I'm still eager to pick it up one day. Probably when I'm finished with the games this year.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Papers, Please.
Oh, before that, sorry. So
Okay.
Mystic, besides FF Tactics being one of the more revered games in the franchise, were there any other specific reasons why you had W play it?
Well, FF Tactics Advanced it's not a proper sequel to FF Tactics, but it's definitely a tactics game in the Final Fantasy series that we've been looking forward to.
Okay.
And so I was surprised to hear that he hadn't played that one or the DS one. So I really wanted him to go in and take a shot at it because we enjoyed tactics so much when we were younger, and we had both always talked about how excited we would be if they announced an FF Tactics 2.
Right.
And while this isn't it, I think it was definitely something worth getting into, giving it a shot. So besides that, though, I think he really enjoyed, and tell me if I'm wrong, you really enjoyed the combat system for FF12 and some of the elements of the world, like with how vibrant it was with all the different races and stuff. And so I believe Tactics Advance actually does a better job of talking about how that world exists with all the other creatures, whereas FF12 is pretty much a human-centric story. And so Tactics Advance also is kind of human-centric because the main characters are actually people taken from outside of the world of Ivalice and then brought in, and they're all humans, of course.
But it gets a bit more into the weeds.
Yeah, but it definitely integrates, like, there are more main characters who are non-humans in that game than there are relevant characters in FF12, and I think that really does help to make that world much more likable.
Gotcha.
Yeah, FF12, I enjoyed playing that game because of the combat. I completely got disassociated with the storyline. I just felt like it was unengaging, and I completely I just didn't like it.
Still looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous. I always tell people, like, the intro cutscene to Final Fantasy 12 is still like one of the most beautiful cutscenes in video games that video games still are trying to to this day, like, compete with, because that was a PS2 thing, but it was still, like, if someone told me that wasn't HD, I really wouldn't believe them, because it was just so good looking. Yeah, Final Fantasy 12, I enjoyed the combat. The story was so unengaging that I lost track of it, even before I found Bosch, the character, and I eventually hated Bosch for reasons that was unjustified. He was accused of killing my brother, and his excuse for not killing his excuse for his defense was it was his twin brother. Now apparently I had already met his twin brother, but I forgot about this.
Oops.
So from my perspective, I was taking his word at face value.
Uh-huh.
And everyone in the party just seemed to like, oh, okay, well, that explains everything. Let's go. And I'm like, no, this person killed my brother. I am not, like, prove to me this was your brother or your twin brother or no deal. But nope, that's not what happened. And he just followed my party for the whole game. And I was just, like, so uninterested in this storyline. But yeah, Tactics Advanced is in the same world as Final Fantasy 12, and it's so much more charming and fun.
Absolutely, yes.
Have either of you two looked into Zodiac Age at all?
Is that the kickstarted?
That's
tactical
the
RPG?
Final Fantasy 12 remake, correct?
Oh.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac Age.
Okay, I own it, but I have not played it yet.
Gotcha, I see. Okay.
I've tried playing FF12 probably 4 times now,
Yeah.
and every time I get to Mount Gagazet,
Uh-huh.
or whatever they call it in that world, Mount Buramasace,
Gagagalaga.
I completely lose my save file.
Yeah.
My PS3 dies,
Oh no.
and I have to get a new one, or my PS2 memory card
Yeah.
is wiped.
Oh.
So it's a cursed game.
Yeah, I was gonna say this game is cursed. Has a cursed link with you.
Yeah,
Bummer.
it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. So sorry, I cut you off before you got to Papers, Please. Was there something you wanted to say about that?
Well, Papers, Please was so interesting. It's such a simple game, but it's got a lot to it. So you're just this border patrol for this make-believe country called Pakistan, and you're
Yeah,
just
there's some extra K's in there. Mystic's giving us a look. He's like, wait a second. That sounds like
Erstatska.
could be.
Arstotzka?
Yeah, I think one of the other like the neighboring countries is like Pakistan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it like tries to differentiate.
Yeah, there were several different fantasy countries, and you're just the border patrol. All you do is you make sure everyone has their paperwork in order so they can enter the country and have a wonderful day, moving on. But the more you play, you learn about this terrorist organization and this revolutionary group that are trying to go against the government, and you have to choose whether you want to ally with them or if you want to just keep your nose clean and
Right. Yeah.
But then also there's like citizens, just regular people that are just trying to get through their day and just get into the country, but they're being harassed by criminals and terrorists. And
Right.
there was one part I remember distinctly where this woman had asked me to prevent this man from entering the country because he was out to get her, like he was stalking her. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll keep that name in mind, but I had forgotten.
Oh no.
And of course the guy's name came up shortly after, and all his paperwork was good, and I let him on through. And every morning the next day you see a newspaper that says like important news of the current events.
Yeah.
And in one of them it said that like some people were attacked, and I was like, oh no, did I get that woman killed because I let this crazy evil guy into
Forgot
the
to write his
country,
name down. Yeah.
this stalker. But at the end of the day, your family, your loved ones come first with the medicine and feeding them and giving them a home, and giving them better quality of life by buying more expensive houses. And but of course with more expensive houses comes the burden of having to pay the rent for those places,
Which is where allying with the
terrorists and the other security guards, who will give you a bonus if you give them people who don't really deserve to be apprehended, but they'll still give you money if you do so. It was just a really interesting way of going about that, and I was completely wrong when I assumed it was a document paperwork simulator.
Well, that wasn't particularly incorrect. Just that when you thought it would be a really boring job simulator. Because what you said is true. You are exactly doing paper stamping and passport checking.
Yeah, you're doing it's all very specific. You're looking at like ID codes and like specific regional papers and names and things and dates and getting everything right. So you are doing that, but it does it without making it mundane. It's like a good mundane, I guess, a satisfying mundane.
I think my favorite part of watching you play that game was that the way that you actually interacted with the people that came up to your stand as if you really were there talking to them.
Yeah. Papers, please. Oh, yeah, I got really into it.
And then I think my favorite time when that happened was in my attempt, I was your secretary, helping you keep your paperwork together, to help keep their paperwork together.
I hired Tree to keep track of certain things for the documents.
It's like I really want to play that game myself sometime. But I really loved it when there was a person and you thought their paperwork was wrong and you marked it wrong, and I was like, oh no, W, their paperwork's straight, it's good. And you checked and it was, and you attempted 3 times to stamp accept on their passport, but it didn't work. They got turned away.
Yep.
Just like when you're filling out a test, like no matter how dark you make the other circles, the first one you did, that's gonna be the one.
Yep. Okay, well, are there any other things you guys want to talk about, the games that you got?
I'm not the biggest fan of F-15 from what I've heard and seen about it.
From what you've played a little bit.
So far I think the gameplay is fun, but I know it's not going to be a super popular opinion, but I'm actually not a big fan of any of the characters. They're okay. They're okay, but none of them are really stand out, like I said in the other Final Fantasies, particularly 6 and 9 that I played recently. But I'm giving it a chance because I haven't assigned it.
You mean you're not excited for Boy Band on Road Trip?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's an unpopular opinion. I think there are a lot of people on both camps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it goes. But I'm giving it a chance.
That's all I can ask.
I've actually only seen very little Witcher 3. It's not been like I haven't paid much attention to the Witcher series, although I've heard good things about it. I've heard good things about the music and everything. Yeah. So I'll see how I like it. But I enjoyed 1,000 Year Door a ton. And Bravely Default I'm also enjoying so far.
Is there anything you want to talk about as far as 1,000 Year Door, or did you want to save that for like an entire discussion?
I mean, yeah, if we go into like, there's a lot of detail in that game.
Yeah.
Just that my favorite character was Vivian.
Vivian? Wasn't it Goombella?
Dun dun dun.
I like Vivian and Goombella. It's hard to choose between
Don't make me pick.
But definitely the first half, Goombella was my favorite. But Vivian, I think I just felt for her because of the way that, it's like one thing when you have, even if you're not a great person, you have your friends there for you. But Vivian just didn't have her sisters there. The ex-Knots didn't care about her. Everyone on Mario's team didn't really care for her. But Mario, you feel for her and ask for her help and help her out, and I don't know, I think that really touched me. I wish there actually was a little more with Vivian past the small arc that she gets.
Yeah.
I feel like Goombella remains relevant because of the professor and the storyline.
Yeah, I was so excited to see your reaction when Vivian finally joined your party, and I was like, because you felt for Vivian, but you still acknowledged her as like a villain, and then even you were like going, oh, I hope Vivian joins your party.
Yeah, actually, in every battle with the Siren Sisters, I saved her last because I hoped that somehow they would just lose before Vivian, like they would be defeated and Vivian would run away or something. But yeah, I'm really glad she ends up joining. I really like that part of the story they do there. Actually, the whole arc, spoilers, when Mario becomes a shadow of himself. I think that was my favorite arc. Although I think it's like the shortest arc. But I think it was definitely my favorite. And that's part of why probably I like Vivian so much. But Goombella still holds a place in my heart. I know Mystic wish Goombella was my top only favorite.
That's okay. She's my favorite. That's all that matters.
You can have Goombella, and I guess I'll have Vivian.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see more Vivian in 1,000 Year Door 2.
Oh.
No.
That's never gonna happen, but that would be really awesome.
Yeah.
I was just actually looking at an article that was mentioning like top games for Nintendo coming out 2019, maybe 2020, and number one on their list was, oh man, a remake or a sequel.
Really? For Thousand Year Door?
He's like, yeah,
Oh, man.
that's what they were asking for, and I was like, oh man, I feel you now. I understand why people ask for this everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, any last thoughts, Mystic?
No.
How about you, Cuddly?
The farting pig is still my favorite.
All right, this has been the OwlBoiz. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Ow, away.
Gotta work on